Calling this meeting of the Public Pension Oversight Board into session. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senator Berg, Senator Carroll, Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills, Senator Neal, Senator Nemus.
Present.
Senator Wilson.
Here.
Representative Bojanowski. Representative Duval.
Here.
Representative Fleming. Representative Graham.
Here.
Representative Petrie.
Here.
Representative Pratt.
Here.
Representative Tipton.
Here.
Auditor Allison Ball.
Matt Fry's proxy.
Thank you. John Hicks. Victor Maddox. Sharon Mattingly. Representative Hale. Senator Higdon.
Here.
Representative Johnson.
Here. Okay. Before we vote on the last meeting's minutes, I'd like to go ahead and offer the floor to Leader Graham. Graham, I understand you have someone, or Leader Graham, I understand you have someone you'd like to introduce.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to introduce to my colleagues, who soon will be a colleague of yours, my successor, Erica Hancock. Erica, I cannot see you from the thing, but I'd stand up so they can see you. She will be taking the oath of office and taking on the 57th District, and she's a businesswoman. Actually, she is my insurance carrier, and I'm hoping that I get to stay with her. But anyway, she's going to do an excellent job as a businesswoman, as a mother, and as a supporter within the community. And I'm glad that she's here. And can you all give her a warm welcome? Thank you.
Welcome, and get ready. Amen. So is there anyone else that has any introductions they'd like to do? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. Motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Before we get into the actual agenda, Chairman Higdon, do you have any comments to kick us off with?
No, sir. I'm ready for today's meeting, and thank everybody for being here. This is important stuff that we talk about. Public pensions are very, very important, and I know we're going to hear some legislation today, and one of the things that we've tried to do in PPOB is any legislation that's coming forth this session to be heard is it be previewed by PPOB. So we'll be hearing some bills today, and when we set up our meeting, our January meeting, we'll have a few more to listen to and to hear and try to better understand them. So when you make corrections to pensions, you need to make sure that you've done your homework and actuarial analysis, and that we're not creating unfunded liabilities as some have done in the past. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. It's those two infamous words, unintended consequences, that we would try to avoid with this process here. And that being the case, I'm going to invite Representative Blanton to come forward. He has a bill request he would like to discuss with us today. If you would introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. John Blanton. I represent the 92nd District, and I'll let Erin introduce herself.
Hi, Erin Surratt, Executive Director of the Office of Benefits at KPPA.
Thank you. So some of you all were at the committee meeting back during session. We presented this simple piece of legislation that simply codifies language dealing with pension spiking. Back a few years back, there was put in place a 10% cap. Anything above that was considered spiking if you got a pay raise above that. However, thankfully, the state of the Commonwealth has been in much better shape over the last few years, and we've been able to give some pay raises to our employees. But unfortunately, it was above that 10%, and it was given to all the employees, not just one or two. And so there was a litigation on this, and the courts ruled that when it's given across the board like that, it's not part of the pension spiking. And all this does is codifies that court language that says when the General Assembly gives these type of raises, it does not qualify under the pension spiking statute. Aaron, is that about got it?
Yep, I think that covers it. I would add that it applies to all plans or systems K, C, and S.
Any questions?
Representative Tipton, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Blatton. Aaron, does this apply retroactively to those since these pay raises came into place?
We actually, I'm sorry.
No.
We actually, because this bill did not get passed in the last session, the KPPA inserted into an administrative regulation this exact language, and it was effective July 1st, 2024. So we've been operating under that for the exempt or for the across the board raises.
Mr. Chair, if I could proceed, I assume that is just based on the court decision, to be in compliance with the court decision, and this bill would just put her statutorily in compliance with that court decision.
That is correct, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Blanton, this question's redundant, but I need to ask it. This in no way affects any of the other spiking provisions in current legislation or current statute.
No, sir, it does not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Representative Blanton, appreciate you coming in today, taking the time to do this. We appreciate the fact that we're just coming in to make sure that we fully understand what the bill doesn't do, and we look forward to hearing it on the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do believe the members has a copy of the wording in your packet as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you.
Next up, Alicia Sales. Come on down. The price is not right, but you're welcome to come down anyway. And the topic is Bill Request 804. If you would like to, as well, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and then, again, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Co-Chair Higdon, thank you for allowing me to address the committee today. My name is Alicia Sells. I am the CEO of WeLeadCS. WeLeadCS was actually created in statute and enabling legislation in KRS 158-809, passed in the 22 legislative session, to provide all Kentucky students access to dual credit computer science pathways through virtual education. In the 24 session, you appropriated $3 million for the operation of WeLeadCS. We're in our inaugural year of statewide operation. We have 86 students from 8 different counties. We are currently recruiting 300 students for the next school year. And those students are retained enrollment in their home high school. Our teachers, who WeLeadCS employees, provide their instruction for an hour a day. So it's just the typical, instead of going to a classroom, they go to the library to sign on to WeLeadCS and learn with our teachers. The General Assembly set up WeLeadCS in statute as a nonprofit organization, and I have the honor to run that organization. One of the things that I encountered as we started for this year is to figure out how to recruit and pay teachers in the Kentucky teacher retirement system. We want to have teachers working in Kentucky outside of the system. And so I went looking for options of how we would do that, and I discovered that the educational cooperatives, several of the educational cooperatives, offer services as payroll administrators to organizations, really basically saying that those employees that are contracted with them to provide the payroll services are employees of that co-op. I was able to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Valley Educational Cooperative to provide that service for this year. And through the course of that, have encountered some significant challenges to define whether or not WeLeadCS employees are WeLeadCS employees or they are OVAC employees. And the important difference there is that OVAC has an employee handbook that allows for different benefits than I feel like it's fiduciarily responsible for us to provide with the appropriation that General Assembly has provided. They provide tuition reimbursement for a master's degree. They provide 6 weeks paid parental leave for mom and dad, those kinds of things. So as I started looking for alternatives, I went to the statute to see what would it take to be named an employer in KTRS and just have that simple relationship statutorily. And so I contacted Bo Barnes, who's the general counsel for KTRS, as you all know, and talked to him about whether or not the system would accept modification to KRS 161-220 to add WeLeadCS as a named employer. And right before Thanksgiving, had an opportunity to meet with Chairman Johnson about that and talk to that. And he proposed the bill request that you have in your packet. What we would like to do is be added to this section of the statute. I had an opportunity to meet with Co-Chair Higdon this morning, and he had some excellent questions that I've been able to work on since then. And this would add WeLeadCS to this section of the statute that, unlike school districts, if any of our employees were to retire with time accrued, it would not count toward their compensation part of the formula. It would only count toward the service credit part of the formula. And so, Senator Higdon, I owe you some more information on that, but I went to work on that right away in terms of trying to figure out, we want to make sure there's no liability to the system. And I believe the person who's best equipped to address that is Mr. Barnes. But it's my opinion that there is not, and particularly feel better now being able to say to Senator Higdon that they would only receive service credit and not compensation as school district employees would. So we're asking your support of this, and really more than anything, today proves the opportunity or the value of this committee to vet these kinds of ideas before they carry forward to the General Assembly and the full body. So I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions.
Senator Higdon, I'm just feeling a psychic connection that you might have a question or comment. So,
What was Johnny Carson used to say? But
The amazing Karnak, like
anyway, thank you, Lisa, and I appreciate that. And you know, back years ago, that's the way most school systems did. Instead of the way they're doing sick days now, they did service credit, and so that's very good. And the reason I was asking about sick days, there's really no standardization across districts, or now that we're organizations like yours that want to be involved in the pension system. So I think that's the reason I asked the questions, is just to see what your intentions were, and that was a good report. Thank you for that. But that I have nothing against sick days. That's a benefit that teachers accrue, and that's fine. But I do think there needs to be standardization, and thank you for your information, and thank you very much.
You're welcome, Senator. Thank you for your questions. They were excellent.
Chairman Tipton, question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Alicia, thank you for your presentation.
Mr. Chairman.
I've been I was actually already looking at this statute before this bill was coming forward. If members in your meeting materials for this meeting, there's, I think this was asked for last meeting. We've got a breakdown of all the TRS employers, or at least if it's not in the folder, it's online. It's broken down by local school districts, non-state agencies, regional cooperatives, and state agencies and universities. So it's currently a breakdown of your current employees or anticipate employees. Would all of them be certified, or would you have administrative positions that are non-certified positions?
So at the most, I would anticipate that we would have one non-certified position, and that would be a part-time administrative assistant. Everyone else, we want to do double duty. So even our two administrators, our director of virtual learning and our director of student success, also teach. So we really want all the rest of our employees to be certified employees.
If I could follow up, so I would assume that if there's any kind of benefits given to a classified employee, that would be outside the TRS system?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I will mention that list of employers is included in your packet. Any other questions or comments from any members of the board? Chairman Petrie.
Thank you, Chairman. Just bear with me for a moment. So WeLeadCS, incorporated in Kentucky, it looks like around 2022.
Yes, sir.
As a nonprofit, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I'm just trying to make sure I get the issue. We've got a $1.5 million per year appropriation, House Bill 6 in the 2024 session to WeLeadCS as a nonprofit. What exactly is the issue you're after? Or what's just home me in on that really well?
We would like to be able to pay our employees and employ them directly as a member of an employer named in statute in KTRS, instead of having to expend some of those funds that you appropriated to us to provide direct services to students, to pay one of the education cooperatives an administrative fee, to do our payroll and address the question of whether or not WeLeadCS employees are legally employees of WeLeadCS or they're employees of the co-op.
Yep, that's what I thought it was. So I might like to talk to you at some point in time fairly quickly, because there was an understanding of how that appropriation went in that may not match the conversation today.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Chair.
Anyone else? So Alicia, thank you for the presentation. We have some conversations to have. Feel free to come back to me anytime and let me know what's going on. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next up, the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority Reorganization Proposal. If you would introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ryan Barrow, KPPA. We appreciate you hearing our thoughts today, as well as pension spiking earlier. On the reorg bill, there is a draft in the packet. It starts on page 7 of 27. Really kind of focuses in on really two key things. It takes our CFO to the executive director level. I think that's in both public and private sectors. Typically, the person in charge of the finances and accounting are at the executive director level, so we would ask to be considered. And then within that group, division of accounting, it would split it into two different divisions. Division of accounting, which is kind of what you think in traditional accounting for KPPA, producing the ACFRs, producing other financial statements, as well as the large portfolio we have with division of investments that would do the investment accounting. They are distinct and separate, and that again, in most public and private agencies, that would be the case as well. So basically, two different divisions, and then elevate the CFO to the executive director level. Happy to take any questions.
Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my first thought is, as we try to keep our administrative costs at as low as we can, because those dollars you're spending are you reach over in the corpus of the account and pull those out. What is the additional cost for these folks?
So I don't have the additional cost with me, but I will just articulate the positions. Currently, there is a CFO. It was hired with that intent. That individual's name's Mike Lamb, so there will be no additional cost for that individual. There is currently a division director of accounting, so there will be no additional cost for that. The elevated division of investments may have an additional person, but in the near term, there will be no additional cost. But there could additionally be one person, but it would still be subject to the agency cap.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. Now, are any of these two positions above the payroll cap?
No, those exemptions exist in investments. They do not exist in the accounting side of investments. They're not exempt from the payroll caps.
Thank you. That's good to see you here today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And just kind of to reiterate, what do you see as the benefits of this move?
Well, I think just to have the statute reflect for transparency to the legislators, transparency to the public, to reflect how we're operating, to pull our administrative structure in line with other agencies as well. I don't know if there'll be a large functional change other than that there could be a director that's in charge of the division of investments in the future. But I think, transparency, just like the pension spiking bill, there's a Court of Appeals. We're going to correct the statute. I think some of the same thoughts apply to this change.
Leader Mills.
Brian, is there any savings that this new position, the investments, would possibly produce? I mean, a cut in consulting fees or anything of that nature, or managing fees?
I don't believe we directly tied it to any external consultants. Okay. I think it's going to have, a director over that core group, which is very important. We come and talk about investments here frequently. So I think, it could produce some efficiencies within that division with an elevated individual. I think investments are very important, and I think this reflects that.
Yep. Would they be? Could there be additional investment profits or income from this position possibly?
I'd really say our CIO and the investment group proper really drive that function. Mm-hmm. But I think we could take some administrative burden off of them with an individual like this, so that would free up some time towards that end.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions, comments? Potentially one, because two already exist. Is that correct? Potentially one new hire.
Yes.
The other two already exist.
And,
right?
and that would be the division director of investments, would be the only additional staff that could be generated from this.
If I may, thank you. I think I understand where you're coming from. Be glad to discuss further. I think the questions probably relate this. Why add on one person, which always turns into
Chairman
more
Pitcher,
than,
could you?
why
There
add
you
on
go.
one
You knew
person? Why add on one person? What's the actual ROI for that? There's a definite cost. What's the benefit to it? And usually one person is not where it stops at. So I would really like to understand if there's some kind of fiscal analysis, static, dynamic, whatever, of what the necessity of this move is. I'm not taking a position on whether there is or isn't one, but I'm failing to see it a little bit. Fair enough?
Yes, I will add maybe just one second level that I didn't discuss here that's not a statutory change. If we have the CFO be the executive director level, we can actually take our compliance manager that we've had in the past and recently hired, so that's an existing position, and move them into the accounting group. So I had some concerns originally starting in KPPA that the investment group, the compliance officer reported to the CIO. Structurally, I've not seen it done like that. So there's other reasons within the organization, not cost additive, but allow us to take that special assistant and roll them to the executive director. So there are some additional layers that we'll be able to accomplish below the statutory change.
If I may. Yeah, if you can send that by
Yes.
email or conversation or telephone, that would be great. Just
Sure.
so at least I don't know if anyone else has similar questions. Just make sure I can understand the basis for the need. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
And I would just add for clarity, if you want to go ahead and just send that to the members of the board, I think that would be worthwhile. If that's okay with you, Chairman Petrie.
Yes, it's my takeaway. I'll follow up.
Okay.
Thank you for your
And
question.
Senator Byrd, question or comment?
Please, sir. Thank you. And I may have gotten this completely wrong, but are we saying that we want to hire a CEO or CFO, whatever we want to call him, the chief executive officer, at a pay rate that's going to be less than the people he's supervising because they don't have pay caps and he does?
So let me just rephrase and step back. We are talking about the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, being elevated to the executive director level. Functionally, we function like that currently. There is an individual that is in that position. So it is a reporting structure change. So there is CFO, existing title to a CFO. There's an existing person. Then the division of accounting will be split into two groups. There's already a director. But there will be a potential for another director level. The reality is those functions are already done within accounting. Again, it's just elevating the CFO and it would be elevating the director of investments. Potentially one new person, still subject to our overall cap.
But that director of investments is going to actually be overseeing your investors, right? And they don't have the same salary caps.
So
I'm just concerned how your hierarchical structure is going to work when different people are paid different levels, and I'm seeming to think the person on the top is not getting paid. Is getting paid less than the people underneath him. Sometimes that doesn't work well. So that's just my question.
So again, to rephrase, the investment group, our chief investment officer, our director of equities, those kind of roles are the ones that statute has exempted from the traditional salary caps. Those are in a different group. What we're focused on today is the accounting side of that. So some of my comments about, taking some burden off the investment groups, this is the accounting function. So mark to market on securities, the reporting that we do to the board, they're producing that. They're not making investment decisions. That is a separate and distinct group from what we're talking about today. Thank you.
Chairman Higdon, further comment?
Yeah, for Senator Byrd, I'm gonna try to make an explanation of the salary caps. Across state government, there's a few of them. There are not very many that can exceed the salary cap. Something that we are very guarded about. But several years ago, we had a major problem in the KPPA about investment folks that we were not able to pay. We were losing all of our investment folks because others were stealing them away. So we authorized, along with the couple of the upper management of KPPA, 6 individuals who could be paid above the salary cap. And so again, that took special legislation, and that's an exception to the rule. But we needed to do that to be competitive for primarily in our investment officers. So I should have explained that a little better early on. So, but that was a good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Higdon. And just received a note that we do have an organizational chart of KPPA that I'm going to ask that we send to the members that might help clarify this a little bit. And if you want to add something to that just to show the changes that you're looking at from the current organizational chart to the proposed one, I think that might be helpful.
Yes, we will include that in our follow-up.
And I'll just emphasize that's why we have these meetings and why we have these presentations, is so we can deal with these questions now before it goes before a full committee or on the floor. So, Ryan, thank you. Look forward to your input, and look forward to seeing what we can do for you in the coming session.
Thank you for the discussion. Appreciate it.
Next up, Bill Request 357, Chairman Tipton. This bill request is actually dealing with an issue that we've been dealing with back and forth for numerous years now. I bet Chairman Tipton has got the ultimate answer for us. Right, Chairman Tipton?
Well, Mr. Chair, members, have y'all ever remember that game show when you could poll the audience member? Well, I'm kind of here to poll the audience today. I've got a start of a piece of legislation, which I think is good, but appreciate all the input that we can get on it.
Chairman, if you would just go ahead for the record, if you would introduce
yourself. James
yourself.
Tipton, I represent House District 53, Anderson, Spencer County. All right, thank you. We talk about, we've all heard about the issue with teacher vacancies across the state. Back in the October meeting, the Interim Joint Committee on Education, Commissioner Fletcher and KDE gave a presentation on where we were with teacher vacancies. And as of September 1st of this year, we only had one school district in the state that was fully staffed for all positions. Last for the 23-24 school year, there were 593 teacher positions that were posted during the year that were not filled at the end of the school year. That is 11% of all the teacher positions that were put out there that were not filled at the end of the school year. And some of the I'm sure I don't have to go into a lot of detail about this, but one of the main areas that we are seeing shortages in are actually in elementary school teachers and also special education. And special education in particular is one of the reasons I brought this legislation today. I was contacted back in the summer by the superintendent, Ms. Sheila Mitchell of the Anderson County School District. Back during COVID, we made some changes to existing state law. And one of the changes that we made during COVID was to the number of critical shortage area teachers that school districts could hire who were retired and wanted to be reemployed. The statute says that they can hire 1% of their total teachers or the number 2. During COVID, that was increased to 10%, but last year, this current school year, that exception has gone away, so it's back down to, on critical shortage area, only 1% or 2. Now, one of the things you need to understand about special education teachers, we have a lot of optional certification programs. There are 9 different options. However, per federal law, a special education teacher cannot be optionally certified. They have to go through that certification process, which makes it that much more difficult. So the basis of this bill is dealing with the issue of critical shortage. You may be wondering what is a critical shortage position. If you go to page 12 of the bill in front of you, it refers to KRS 156-106. It actually describes a critical shortage area. It means a lack of certified teachers in particular subject areas, in grade levels or in geographic locations at the elementary and secondary level, as determined annually by the Commissioner of Education. And special education is one of these areas. I think if we talked to a lot of people, things like math, the science. So we're just having a difficulty here. As I looked at this, I thought this would be real simple. But Brad, I got to looking at the statutes, and it's not quite that simple. If you look on the very first, on page 1 of the bill, it says any member retired by reason of service may return to work in a position covered by the Kentucky Teachers Retirement System and continue to receive his or her retirement allowance under the following conditions. But what I found out, there are a lot of different conditions. It's years of service. It's when your retirement date is, how much compensation you can earn, when your hire date is. There are different conditions, whether if you come back full-time, part-time as a substitute, or in a critical shortage area. Now, a few things. One of the things that happened during the special legislation during COVID that expanded to 10%, there was also a change to some long-standing statute that says that if a teacher's retired under the existing statute, but this was changed during the special legislation during COVID, that you could go back to work for a different employer. Statute said 3%. They said you only had to wait 1 month, 30 days, or if you go back to the same employer, it's 12 months, and I believe that limited it down to 3 months, and that's caused TRS a lot of concern because of you cannot have a pre-existing arrangement when you retire that you're going to go back to your employer because you could possibly void that retirement. I didn't change that in this statute. Really what we've done here with the critical shortage area, I've increased that number from 1% to 10% and the number of a minimum of at least 2 up to 4. That is the main thing that we've done in the legislation. A few other things. Again, you have to be off 3 months before you can go back to a different employer, or 12 months if you go back to the same employer. As this section is written, retired teacher goes back to work. It does not impact their current retirement. However, they start a second retirement account, and they would start a second retirement account in the new tier that was adopted on January 1st, 2022, and they would have the same vesting requirements and things for that. So that's essentially what we're trying to do here. As I've looked at all these different exceptions, I'm open to conversation. I will say that several weeks ago I had a Zoom meeting, had Ms. Mitchell in it, staff in it, TRS, Mr. Barnes, Mr. Harbin were in that meeting. Had the Kentucky Retired Teachers Association, Kentucky Association of School Superintendents, Kentucky Associations of School Administrators, and there may have been another K group. I can't remember right now. But we had a large group to discuss. We understand it's an issue. Here's something I've learned since I've been in the legislature. sometimes we have different sections of statutes in different parts of the law. And they kind of have different purposes and have different goals. And sometimes these kind of contradict each other. And we have to find the proper balance. So what I hope we can do here is find a proper balance where we can help our school districts hire the qualified teachers they need to be in front of our students. And but we also don't want to damage and harm the teachers' retirement system and the actuarial process. So we've kind of got to start here. I've seen a few other things reviewing it today. I might want to.
Thank you. Apologize in advance. Very good. Thank you for working on it. I appreciate it. Is there anything further that we can do in this? And to give a particular example, I know that TRS seems to prefer a rather lengthy time of severance or separation before somebody can come in. And I know we've talked about this on multiple occasions of whether that's too long of a period. Maybe not 30, 60, 90, but it may be too long where they're at. Is there anything further that can be done in this bill?
Well, there's a lot of things in this bill that could be changed. But again, it's what we want. We want to make sure we're not wanting to cause harm to the total picture. I know that we've had this conversation in PPLB before. KPPA kind of has a different standard for return to employment. I think they go with the 1 month, the 30 days, whereas TRS has stayed. I know TRS is here. They're welcome to. They can answer that, their position on that. I know they have told me in our conversations that they feel like it's in the best interest of their members to advise them not to return to work. And I think it may have been one of the reasons why there weren't as many people take advantage of this during the special period of time in this legislation, is because they advise people they could potentially be in danger of avoiding their retirement. But I think that is one example. Again, there are limitations here. It talks about full-time, coming back full-time. There are limitations based on your years of service, so how much compensation you can earn in that and part-time. And I think we probably need to take a hard look at this entire section and see if we can come up with some common ground that would benefit, that would protect our retirement system, but also help our school districts out and retain the talent they need.
Be happy to work with you on it. Thank you, Chair.
And I would also offer, this is not a requirement, but I would offer that if you feel the need to come back in January to update us, you're more than welcome to do so, although technically you have fulfilled the requirement for coming before this board, so
all right.
That will be your call.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments? Representative Fleming.
Representative Tipton, I'm just wondering from a historical perspective, why was it 1% in terms of limitation to rehire the active status?
I honestly can't answer that question. Now, I will point out one other change. Your question prompted me to one other change that we had in the statute. We deleted some language that were some regulatory burden on existing school districts to certify that they can't find any other teachers. And I'll be honest, given the current situation, the schools can't find teachers anywhere. So we deleted that. There is existing statute that outlines the process that school districts must take in KRS 160. I think it's 220, I believe. They must take to hire employees of the school system. But I deleted that, but I honestly do not know. It was done at some historical point in time. I do not know the rationale for it at that time. My opinion would be that it was probably at a time when the teacher shortage, especially if the critical shortage area, was not as dire as it is now. But I believe that's why I think we need to take a look at it now, since we're in a much different situation.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick follow-up question. And this might be more of a financial budgetary constraints, but is 10%, I guess, how is 10% determined? And should that be increased higher, assuming that there's availability out there in order to do that?
Well, the only thing we changed is in the legislation presented today is in regard to critical shortage areas. We increased that to 10%. Some of the other areas on the full-time, it's limited to 3%. So that's why I brought up the point we may need to look at a lot of different points about this moving forward. So we started with the 10% today because that's what we did during the COVID era to try to help school districts alleviate shortages at that time, and we stuck with that for a starting point for conversation.
And did that work? Did that help out? That by bumping it up to 10?
I think it's probably going to vary by school district to school district, but based on the information that I've been given, TRS did issue caution to the members that if they came back earlier, that allowed them to come back within 1 month instead of the 3 or 12, and there was some caution given to them, which, again, I'm not a legal analyst, but I know everybody's got legal opinions on that. But that would be an IRS determination. But I think just in general, we've got a problem, and this is not going to fix the teacher shortage, folks. This is just one tool in the toolbox that we could have and utilize to get quality teachers in front of our students across the classrooms of Kentucky.
Right. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Fleming. Senator Burke, question or comment?
Question, sir, and thank you again. I want to know why. Okay. You retire. You have your retirement. You wait whatever X period of time you're supposed to wait. You go back to work. Do we have to enroll those teachers back into the retirement program? I mean, is there not a way to rehire them? They already have their retirement. Rehire them, pay them a little extra because we're no longer funding their retirement. Keep them out of the retirement system entirely so we don't have to worry about what impact they have.
I believe it's the 2021 session we passed. I believe it's House Bill 258. My numbers get confused after a while. That was the legislation that at that time Representative Massey had that started the new tier after January 1st, 2022. And in the statute, it's written that a teacher who is employed after January 1, 2022 would not start a second retirement if they retire in the future and come back as reemployed. Again, this is historically what's been in the statute. It's been in there a long time, but I certainly understand your question, and I'm going to suspect, my friend. I'm going to take a stab at what our friends at TRS would say. That if you don't have them contributing, what you're doing is you're taking a teacher that could have been hired that's contributing to the retirement system. You put a teacher in there who is not contributing to the retirement system, and that's going to impact the actuarial status of the TRS system. Did I get close on that, Bo?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
That would be my prediction of their objection to that would be their concern.
Follow-up question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I would want to know what percentage of the entire retirement system that small number would actually impact, and whether or not in the long term it could possibly have a significant impact. That would be my question in return.
Sure.
Show me the numbers that this is large enough to impact the entire plan.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's my intention once we get kind of firm on the language to try and get some actuarial information on that.
Thank you for the question, and I would just say thank you for taking this on. It is challenging, and it's also critical. So I appreciate your briefing today. Look forward to any input you want to give back to us. Last official item on the agenda, Bo, if you would come forward. We have Bo Barnes, who's going to be discussing a housekeeping bill, but also providing some answers to questions that we've previously asked, and probably, or maybe, answering some questions we asked today. So, as usual, if you would introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Bo Barnes. I serve as Deputy Executive Secretary and General Counsel for the Teachers Retirement System. Excuse me. I've been asked today to talk about who TRS employers are and therefore who our members are, and also provide some data on, or not data, but discuss our housekeeping legislation. So with that, we will start with TRS employers and therefore who our members are. And this is a standard slide that we show at a lot of our presentations, used for a lot of presentations, and it's a high-level look at the TRS employers and the members that we have in the system. Board members, I will note, have been provided a much more detailed document that provides a breakdown of every single TRS participating employer, the number of TRS members they employ, and the total payroll for those TRS members for each employer. Just that information was a little too much to fit neatly into this slide. I will note.
Well, I would just interject that information is in your packet with a cover letter from Gary Harbin, if you want to look for that in your packet. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sir. You'll note that almost 90%, about 90% of our members are in the school districts and the universities that participate in TRS. Eastern Kentucky University, Murray, Moorhead, Western, and Kentucky State Universities make up almost 8% of our membership. So those two groups are almost entirely all of TRS membership. Let's see. These are items of housekeeping legislation, and they are largely technical. These staff recommendations have been presented to the TRS Legislative Committee, but they have not been yet submitted to that committee for formal approval or to the TRS Board of Trustees for formal approval. That will occur when the TRS Board of Trustees has its next quarterly board meeting, which is set by statute and which will be a week from today on the 16th. So on this slide, on the left-hand side, you have the section of KRS, the statute, that would be impacted by these recommendations. And to the right, you have a description of what these amendments would do. So we'll just start at the top and run through these. At the top, we have KRS 161-220. It's our definition statute, but it also includes who our employers are. And as you heard from Ms. Sells earlier, we have added WeLeadCS for consideration by the General Assembly to our list of employers who participate in TRS. Secondly, we have KRS 161-250. This is a technical amendment regarding the filing of appeals and the deadline for the filing of appeals with TRS. And what this technical amendment would do is it would enforce that deadlines have meaning. They are hard and fast, and you don't waive deadlines. We're going to see the same language in a couple of other statutes as well as we move along. KRS 161-430, technical amendment regarding investment contract requirements. KRS 161-470, a technical amendment regarding stopping interest for a member who is convicted of a felony related to their employment. This next recommendation actually impacts two statutes, KRS 161-585 and KRS 161-661. And the first recommendation is regarding Disability Medical Review Committee records, and the language would emphasize the necessity to maintain these confidential health records of our members in a confidential manner. And that applies to both 161-585 and 161-661. There are also some technical amendments to 161-585. The remaining three recommendations affect only KRS 161-661. The first is in regard 99.9% of our members are great people, but with over 150,000 participants, you're going to get one or two bad apples. So this addresses the submission of false or fraudulent information to TRS in regard to disability retirement. The third of these recommendations is a technical amendment regarding interest calculation, and then also there is filing deadline with disability retirement applications. So again, we would use the same language to emphasize that deadlines have a meaning. They're hard and fast. They're there for a reason, and they can't be waived. Next, KRS 161-608. This is the TRS reciprocity statute, and reciprocity, of course, means that person, a member who has service in both TRS and another state-administered retirement system. And so we would clarify the entry date when somebody has serviced another state retirement system regarding reinstatement or refund to that account. KRS 161-630, technical amendment, again, filing deadlines for benefit options, and that's just when retired members experience certain qualifying events like divorce, marriage, or death of a beneficiary, they have an option to change options or beneficiaries even. So this would, again, just emphasize that deadlines are hard and fast. KRS 161-635 and KRS 161-636. This is the part of that new account type. We call it TRS4 at TRS, and it's for individuals who became members of the system on or after January 1st, 2022. And as this body knows, there's both a foundational retirement annuity benefit, and there's also a supplemental savings account component with that benefit. So for the supplemental savings account, this would allow the board, not mandate, but allow the board to promulgate regulations in accordance with KRS Chapter 13A to allow more investment options for TRS4 members with their supplemental account. And these could be tweaked slightly between now and the result of the board meeting, but these, I think, largely this is what's going to constitute the TRS housekeeping package, and this is what our recommendations will look like, virtually unchanged, but subject to approval by the committee and board.
Very good. Any questions or comments from the board members? Okay. Senator Neal, I'll be right back.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the comments made regarding deadlines, I'm just curious, what is the process of notification that sets up the deadline? How does that work?
Well, if someone lets us know in writing, and that can be an email, just let us know that you intend to do this, and then we can get you set up. So that's what we're looking for, something in writing, and again, something as simple as an email. Now we have forms for all these processes, but once you get us an email saying you want to do this, and we would say you've sought to exercise this option.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Sure. So, is there a notification as to the procedure that kicks that in, or is there any process, or is this just the rule and you're supposed to just know it?
We do a lot of communication on all of this. This is in the summary plan description. This is in all our forms. I mean, we have a lot of communication on all these deadlines.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bo, on the report of the different employers and how many members they have, are all these active members or actual employees at this time, or any retired or non-active included in this list?
These are active employees. These would be retired, return to work as well.
Okay. Now, if I may follow up, Mr. Chair, it shows a grand total of 81,935 total employees or members, with an annual payroll as of fiscal year 24 of $4.348 billion. Now, it's my understanding that each one of the employers is responsible for the statutory contribution for each of these members, correct?
You're talking about the non-district employers?
Yeah, school board, everybody's responsible for paying statutory contribution. Is that correct?
Well, for the school districts, the exception here would be that the Commonwealth makes an on-behalf payment through the SEEK formula on the statutory amount. Yeah. The school districts do contribute 3% of the payroll to the medical insurance.
For the medical
trust,
insurance.
The health insurance trust, yes, sir.
But basically, even the my point I'm trying to get to, even the non-school districts pay the statutory contribution.
They do. They pay the full statutory contribution.
Who is responsible for paying the unfunded liability that's accrued from all these members?
I believe that is just rolled up as part of the ADEC request. The actuaries look at the total unfunded liability for the system, and then that payment that we need to make on that amortized schedule was 30, now it's 20 years, gets placed into part of the budget request for the supplemental funding.
It's the taxpayers of Kentucky that are paying that.
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
believe so.
Okay. On these non-school district, I apologize, it's all right, Mr. Chair. On these non-school district employers, and when we had the testimony earlier on CS leads, I think the question was about, do any of these non-school district employers also offer sick days, and do they pay out at the end and add to the credible compensation, or is that only allowed to the local school districts?
Under the statute, it's going to be the school districts, but also they have established, these regional local cooperatives, educational cooperatives. And under the cooperative statute, they get the same rights and benefits basically, as the members who are in the school district. So the cooperatives and the school districts would be for the application of lump sum payments of sick leave towards a retirement credit for final average salary. As salary credit. Now, these other employers, there's another statute in addition to the one that allows paid sick leave to go towards retirement for final average salary. There's another statute for these other employers, and could apply to the school districts as well if they so chose, but it would allow them, instead of having that lump sum payment going to final average salary, they could pay for the actuarial cost of adding those sick leave days as service credit. And that applies to all these other employers. So somebody retiring with 30 years of service, and they have 100 sick leave days, that employer, those other employers could, if they chose, not the state, but those employers, pay the actual cost to allow that retiring employee to have 30 years and 100 days worth of service credit.
Okay, so it's those other employers in that situation that's paying the expense, the actual expense for adding that as service credit.
Yes, sir. That's per statute.
Okay, and then just so we're clarified, but on the co-ops and the school districts, they pay the initial up to 30% of the cost of sick days, but the actual cost of that is additional part of that ADEC that's formed every year.
Yes, sir. They can pay their retiring school districts and co-ops can pay their retiring employees for their unused sick leave.
30%.
30%
of
of
the
their daily
value
rate.
at retirement.
Retirement contributions come out of that, and then
Yeah.
the state pays the actuarial cost of adding
Do you know offhand what the annual cost of that is now? I know we paid that off $479.2 million in 22. That was part of it was not only sick days, but that was also an unfunded COLA. Was it around 35, 40 million? Is that close?
It's in the 40 million range,
Okay,
something million range, yes, according to the latest valuation.
All right.
Last budget request.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tipton. Senator Nemes, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The reciprocity, is that only TRS, or will that be the other?
Yeah, it will be someone who has an account both with TRS and one of the other state-administered retirement systems like KPPA or judicial form retirement systems.
So will it also affect KPPA and judicial on their own without TRS?
No, this is for TRS only.
Okay.
This is a TRS statute. It's not the general reciprocity statute that applies to all the retirement systems. This one applies just to TRS. Yes, sir. Good question.
Chairman Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess, Bo, sometimes you think I harp on sick days, and I don't have any problem with sick days, but I am a proponent for standardization across the state, where, and you provided me with the list earlier in the year, and school districts are all over the board. Some of them up to six personal days and 10 sick days, and so anyway, that's one of the things I'd like to do is see us standardize that across the board, and school districts can give all the benefits they want. It's just that the 10 sick days would be all that statutorily that we would be obligated to pay the actual that unfunded liability on. The school district would have to pay the rest, but that I don't want to get into that right now. We'll work on that later. But and you sent me all the information on every school district, what their sick day policy was, what their personal day policy was, and what their emergency days. That was very straightforward, and I thank you for that. But on all these others now, we don't know. We don't have any idea what their policies are and what they're given in sick days and personal days and how many of those are carrying forward to retirement. Will you be able to get that information for us so we can see what each one of these is doing and what their policies are? And if it's like Ms. Sales testified where they're doing the service credit, that's great. Service credit is an expense to the school district. They don't pass that unfunded liability along to the TRS and to the taxpayer, correct?
For the it's for the non-school district employers that we have here, and the non-cooperative employers, yes, they pay the actuarial cost of service credit, sick leave used as service credit. Does that answer your question? It
does, but I just I just want to make sure that's the way we're doing it. We some of the co-ops, if they are doing payroll for other organizations, do we have other organizations that are getting the same benefit as a Kentucky teacher would get? That's my concern. Do we know? I just would like to have transparency on exactly what we're doing on these, and I don't want to lay too much homework on you, but it'd just be nice to know exactly what we're doing with these. I understand the school systems. These other organizations, I don't.
So the request is for their sick leave policies that's used as service credit instead of salary credit?
My question to you is these other regional cooperative state agencies, these other ones that are not school districts, how are they? Do they have a sick day policy like the school districts, and they pass along the sick day that is part of their final compensation?
They would have policies. They should all have policies, yes, sir. So I'll see what we have at the office.
I just like to know, what are they doing? Is there any oversight to what they can, what benefits they can give? Because again, it's a good benefit, but it's a very expensive benefit, and we want to make sure that the folks that are getting it are that we understand what's going on with all of these. And that's my question, is just I don't know what I don't know.
Yes, we'll get you some further information on that, Senator Higdon.
Well,
glad to.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate it.
So I guess I would just add to that, and this is probably part of what you were going to do anyway, but if there are any standardized policies at your level that they're following, that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, there are statutory limitations, certainly out there for the application of sick leave as service or salary credit.
Very good. To the board members, is there anything else we can add and pile on to Bo's plate at this time? No. And Chairman Hemmings says, "Sure."
I do want to, Bo. I do want to thank you. You've been very receptive to all the questions that we've asked, and like I said, I think just transparency is good, and you all been very good at forwarding us this information, and so we can digest it, and when people ask us questions, we'll have the answers. So, thank you very much for your cooperation on all this additional information we'd like to have.
And I'd like to echo that as well. I appreciate you keep answering my emails. Thank you for that. The agenda actually said that you could be responding to previous questions. Have we covered all of those, or is there still any other subject matter areas that you felt like we needed to discuss today?
I don't think so. I've sent some information to you all that have been requested, and I think there's one more follow-up on some questions that you'll have, but I think that's largely covered.
Okay, and then my final question to you is, we did have some presentations today that might have spurred a thought on your part. I'd just give you the opportunity, if you have anything that you might have wanted to add to with respect to any of the presentations, you're welcome to do so.
Not at this point. I think they've been covered and covered before this board. But if there's any questions about any matters that came up earlier today, I'm more than happy to discuss those.
Well, thank you very much for that. Thank you for the presentation, answering the questions. I appreciate you stepping up for us.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes the formal agenda for the day. However, we do have a couple of administrative items that while I would like to not do, I'm going to anyway because I think it's kind of expected of us. And that's one is to recognize those members of the board who will be departing the board with this being the last meeting of this year. Leader Graham, thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you've done. You're a statesman and you're a representative of your district well, and you've been a good member of this board, and we appreciate the passion and the input that you've brought to this board. Yeah, the floor is yours if you'd like to say anything. Leader, if you wanted, for the record, your microphone's not on.
All right. You would think at 22 years I would know to turn on the mic, but I just want to thank the people of Frankfort and Franklin County and my colleagues. Jimmy Higdon is the last one of our class to still be here. We got elected in 2002 and was sworn in 2003, and that was the first time I think that the Republicans had more members coming in than Democratic. We were still in the majority at that time. But the one thing about Jimmy is that he's a good guy. He's willing to work with people on both sides of the aisle. And he's a good man. And I've enjoyed serving with him and being his friend. I hope he's enjoyed serving with me and being my friend. But this is an honor for those of us who serve in the 100th House and the 38 members of the Senate. The people send us here to work together, to do the things right for the people of the Commonwealth, all the people of the Commonwealth. And I will say this about education. Education, public education, is the key that opens the door to opportunity. And just to, I'm a history teacher, I'll say this. When the country was established, the main thing that the founding fathers wanted was to have an education system so that the people of the country would understand what democracy is all about. And when we take that away, if we ever take that away, we will never have the system that we currently have that has helped us get through all these things that have happened to us as a nation, whether World War I and II, the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement. All of those things that took place made our country a better place to live, to work, and to grow. And we are still the nation that other nations look at to see us as a democracy that is thriving and doing those things that we as citizens want to be done. And here in this committee, I think everyone is working because of our state employees. We know how much they work. We have state employees who work for us here in the General Assembly. And our legislative people who work for us have been recognized, and I've said this every time because I've always wanted to remind those who are just coming in and those who are going out like myself, how important they have played with us in all the bills that we have introduced and passed. They are considered as one of the best legislative people who work for the legislature. They've been honored. We've been honored many times on the national scale about how our people who work for us work, and they do great jobs in terms of what they provide to us when we call them and ask them to help working for a bill. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the staff again for all the work that you have done and that you continue to do, and for the work that you do for the members of the General Assembly, who are important to be to have the information that they need in order to pursue the bills that we have paid or providing. So thank you all, and thank you for I'm glad to have served here for 22 years, but now it's time to go head home and do some other things. God bless you, God keep you, and God bless our Commonwealth.
And we could not let you leave without Chairman Higdon having a word to say as well.
Oh, I knew.
Well, since you called me out, you know, Derek, there's three ways out of this place. They can vote you out, carry you out, or you can go out on your own terms. I don't like either one, the first two. But we were elected and came in the same time, and you know, we've been friends we served together in the House, and we've been friends for all those 22 years. And I can never remember a time that you weren't a gentleman, and I can never remember a time, even though we disagreed on some issues, that we were ever mad at each other. We always remained civil and got along, and like I said, when I first came here, I figured I'd be the first one to leave out of that group of 11. It's hard to believe I'm the last of the Mohegans, but it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve with you, Derek, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, Representative Pratt, this is your moment, man. And this is your last chance to address the board. So,
well, I wish I'd went before Representative Graham. He's much better at speechifying than I am. But a great speech. No, it's been an honor to serve with you guys. Again, especially on this board, I've got personal interest in it, having a wife that's a retired teacher. And actually helps when people ask questions to be able to actually know the information. Because, again, there's a lot of information out there that is not correct. And it's really helped me a lot. Like I said, you know, I came in, I'm leaving after 8 years. Trust me, I'm not retiring. I'm going home to run my business. But I've really enjoyed serving with you guys as I came in with you, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Fleming, and also Mr. Petrie. Have enjoyed serving with you guys. It's been a real honor. And again, this is a great committee. You know, we do great work, and it is our responsibility to make sure we've made promises to people. We need to make sure those promises are kept, that we said this retirement system would be here for them. And again, with especially my wife being a teacher, we have a lot of friends that are teachers, that are retired state employees, that we owe, again, they'll be able to answer the questions. But again, we owe the people. We made them a promise. Let's keep our promises. And again, it's been a real pleasure serving with you all, y'all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It has been an honor to be with you. And then also, this is I don't know what you call this, but it's possibly premature, possibly not. But Leader Mills, you may or may not be leaving us. We're hoping that you can negotiate a new contract. Do you have anything you'd like to say to us?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I think this committee is such an important committee, and the work that we've done over the last 8 years now to bring transparency, to ask questions is just really important to the financial viability of our state moving forward, and to the folks that work for us in state government. So it's been a pleasure, and I've learned a lot. I may try to get back on here, to be honest with you. So, but thank you for the recognition. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I would say, should this be your last meeting with the board, thank you for your knowledge, your common sense, and your quiet, the way that you could bring me back to the ground sometimes when I needed it. I appreciate that. But I now know where your office is, so you're not getting away from me that easily. Chairman Higdon, comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Leader Mills, that's I had to get used to that name. It's been awesome serving with you, and I too will lobby to have you back on this committee. We'll have to see if we can a future draft choice or something, or a line item in the added onto a bill to where we have a few more General Assembly members back to the PPOB. And this is such an important committee, and really ought to have every freshman that comes to this organization serve a term on PPOB, because this is one very, very important issues are addressed here to take care of the promises that we've made, and to understand the system and have open dialogue, and so it is important. So back to you, Leader Mills. We'll do everything we can to get you back.
So thank you for the comments. and I appreciate the indulgence of the board. I have, with the board's indulgence, one more time, I have one more item of interest that we need to take care of, and I seriously considered just not doing this in the hopes that if I pretended it wasn't happening, it wouldn't happen. But whether I like it or not, Jennifer Hines is retiring this month. This is her last month with the board, with the committee. We very much appreciate your work. I will personally say that not only has your knowledge helped me understand things, but your common sense has kept me out of trouble more than once. And I appreciate you, and I know I speak for the entire board when I say that. I'm going to ask two things. One, I know Chairman Higdon's going to want to say something, but I'm going to let him have the last word. But before we do that, Jennifer, would you please come up here? Or do we want to go down front? Why don't we go down front? Chairman Higdon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, Jennifer, thank you for your work and dedication to this committee. And I know that several of us on this committee are classified as high maintenance. And you have taken such good care of us and always turned around our bills in record time and always answered our questions, and you're always available for us. And I just can't thank you enough and how much I appreciate your dedication to this job. With your permission, I wanted to share a testimonial that you made about deferred comp. You have your permission? Jennifer talked about, and if you're not, most everybody's participating in deferred comp. We made it where you had to opt out to not participate. But Jennifer, they also provide a service where they have counselors that will talk to you about your finances and give you advice. And Jennifer said meeting with her, this counselor, the free counselor with deferred comp, gave her the confidence that she could retire at an early age. I think that's a real testimony to deferred comp and the services that they provide. And Jennifer, kind of a Dave Ramsey approach to saving money and where she could retire early and enjoy herself, and just a true testimony to the person that you are. So thank you again for your service to the Commonwealth of Kentucky and to the General Assembly. Thank you.
So for the record, it's the deferred comp counselor's responsibility for the fact that we're losing you before we want to. Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer, for everything. We could stay all day and we wouldn't be able to say everything we should. We appreciate you. One last item for the board members to take note is that we are anticipating a meeting the fourth Monday of January, time and location to be determined, but that is January 26th. Are there any comments or questions from the board, members of the board? What did I say? 27th. Thank you. One of those days in there. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.